So what I've got out is some black paint, right? Nice simple black paint. I'm just going to dip into our black paint with a paintbrush, right? And all we're going to do is paint on the area that we've just sanded. Right, you want to make sure you get some nice good coverage. Right, you might have to put a coat or two down, but I mean this is just a quick, let's see where we are, what's going on. Right, so I'm just trying to quickly just build up the coverage pretty quick, but I'm probably have to let that dry a bit. So what's going to happen now is we just leave that to dry, very nice and quickly. And what the black paint will do is it will show warts and all. It will show you, what kind of maybe filling you've got to do, any sort of scratches left over from the sanding sticks, any problems to have to deal with, and it will even show you, if you've got any problems to deal with. Because I mean, I know you can sort of look at some of these areas and be like, oh no, that needs a filling, that needs a sanding. But actually, when you put some paint on, you might actually see that actually it doesn't need any work to be done to it. So it is good to get some paint down to identify what needs to be done. So I'm going to let that dry and hopefully we'll see some results with that. So our paint has dried now. Don't know how well you can pick it up on camera, but with the naked eye, you rotate it in the light, you can see what problems you've got. I can see, let's maybe bring you in as close as we can get and see if we can get you to see it. But I'm seeing that it's all good, right? But I can see just here a little bit of a line. I don't know if you can pick that up maybe on camera. You might be able to just see that. There's like a little faint dip. I mean, it is rather faint. I mean, we are probably getting a little bit picky. This is a really beginner's build, so you could probably get away with just leaving that. But another indication of, if you've got a problem is what you can simply do is come in with a nice fine sanding stick and just basically sand away the paint that we've painted on just here, right? And if we keep on at it, what will happen is as we sand this away, we will see our problems even more so. Hopefully now, as you're seeing this paint go away, right, you might be able to see where I indicated I could see a bit of a dip, because what the sanding stick's doing, it's sanding away at the surface, so it's sanding away that black paint. But where we've got any dips or gaps or anything like that, the sanding stick's not going to get to it. It's only going to be getting to the surface. So when you sand it away, right, the black paint stays into any sort of dips. I mean, we've got our recess panel lines running across here, and you can see that black paint stayed in there, and it's a great indicator to just see, where we are with that, and and any scratches as well from, say coarse sanding sticks. I mean, we haven't got any, but yeah, it's indicating to us that maybe a bit of filler would be okay to put onto there. But as I say, I mean, this is a basic build. You could probably get away with like something like that, but you might have a bigger gap, right, and you might sort of need to put some filler down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to get my razor blade here, and I'm actually going to sort of just cut into our seam line here just a little bit, right, because what I want to do is I just want to show you a gap. As you can see, I've just put a gap in with my blade just there. So how do we tackle gaps to sort of get rid of them? Because we can do all the sanding we like, but if there's a big gap in there, we're going to sand away the plastic before the gap's gone. So what we need is filler. Now, this is a basic video build. We could go off, we could buy all sorts of fillers, and and it just adds up and adds up. All this money we're spending, on all these different things, it's going to add up, and before you know it, you've bought a little bit of this, and there's 100 quid gone. So instead of going out buying all sorts of fillers and sort of having different thicknesses, pastes and paint on ones and all this cool stuff that you can get, what I want you to do is I want you to go out and buy some artist's pastels, some soft pastels, and the whole cool thing about this is I wanted you to go out and buy this for some weathering we're going to be looking at the end, but it doubles up as making your own filler. So to make your own filler, right, you're going to need, first off, if you remember, I said one of the buys you want to go out and buy is some matte varnish, right? Whatever varnish you want, but I do recommend the matte UV varnish. We've got our pastels. Pick any pretty colour you want to pick. I'm going to pick red because I like red, right? Get out our blade, wherever that has gone, and then you want something to do this on, a palette. You could use a kitchen tile for using as a palette. I do that all the time, right? And what we want to do, get in our blade, get in our pastel just here. What we're going to do is we're going to take a corner and we're just going to strike this across like so, right? Just scrape it across nice and sort of light, right? We don't want to do it heavy so that we get big chunks of this pastel coming off, right? And as you can see at the bottom, we're getting this sort of really sort of nice fine powder, right? So, you know, really sort of, you can go fast if you want, just keep it light so you don't have big chunks coming off. Right, so there we go. I think we've got enough for our task at hand, right? And it can get messy, so, you know, maybe get the kitchen paper, maybe you could have put the kitchen paper towel underneath, to be fair, but let's just wipe that up because that red is going to get absolutely everywhere. Then what we want is we've got our matte UV varnish and we've got some water. Now this is sort of a you might be a bit of hit and miss at first, but it's all about getting, you know, what consistency you want. You want something that is, you know, it's going to be able to be brushed on or pasted on, depending on the thickness, can depend on the job at hand, right? So if you've got like a really light gap, which is like not very noticeable, right, you could thin this now to a sort of like a paint consistency, and, you know, be able to paint it on. You might have a big gap, so maybe you could like really sort of have it thick, so it's like a thick paste consistency, and you could like you know, use all sorts of like spatulas and all sorts of dentistry kind of tools, and you sort of scrape it in and stuff. But what we're going to do, we're going to start off with give this a good shake. We want to use the, because what we're doing, we're basically making sort of like a paint. We are, because paint is basically pigments, water, and a sort of like a medium. Our matte UV varnish, that's acting as our medium. It's acting as our sort of like our glue, so to speak, and then the water sort of thins it down, and the pigments creates us our sort of paste for filling. So I'm just getting some water on the end of my paintbrush, and I'm going to start to brush this in, right? And it's going to probably go a little bit on the thick side at first, right? And then we can get a little bit of our matte UV varnish just on the side. This is going to help it sort of stick together, right? And it's just about sort of mixing these three ingredients together to the thickness that you want. You do sort of want maybe something along the lines of almost like a 50-50 mix of water and our matte varnish, right? And then as for the pigments, it's just as much as the thickness as you want it to be. So this is sort of like a nice sort of paint consistency at the moment, so I want it to be a bit thicker than that. So I'm just going to go off and like maybe sort of scrape off a bit more of our pastels there, and sort of like build it up into like a nice paste. Just as a note, I mean, if you do happen to have, I don't know, some pigments that you might have anyway, you know, pigments is just the same as scraping off these pastels. These pastels is just, you know, it's just pigments when you scrape it off. So, you know, if you want to crack on with that, I'll crack on with this.